Hi, guys. Welcome again to our podcast at Alex Rocky Kim. And today I am so proud and so honored to be amongst my two brothers, not only regular brothers, right, but two Korean brothers and two brothers that served with me in the American U.S. military. So, got my business partner and my brother in arms, Francis, who is a Army veteran, and then we have my brother Bruce, a Marine Corps veteran, joining here today. So thanks, brothers,
Thanks for
Thank
inviting
you.
for
us.
joining me.
Yeah.
Now, did you come prepared?
Sure. I guess as prepared as we always will be. Right?
So I didn't let them know we were having this. I just invited them. Hey, come on, come on by, guys. Let's
Yeah.
let's have a conversation. That's what I told them. And so thank you for showing up today. On here, I like to talk about health, wealth, and community. But today, I want to touch on community a little bit. So being men of military, right? Like, how useful is that looking back now as a veteran, kind of looking at society? How important was community when we were in the military? Let's start with that.
Okay. So, like, I didn't come here prepared. So I
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
fact
yeah.
that, where it's more of a conversation rather than a set setting. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, during the basic training, you have a battle buddy, right? The person that spends the entire basic training with you, right? So study with that, you learn to like depend on each other, and literally, like, if you were to go out, get deployed to a war, then that battle buddy is closer than your like blood relative. That person is going to be literally with you 24/7. So that was the foundation that the basic training taught us. So from there, like, you build that brotherhood, and you really depend on each other, and you learn to appreciate the community that because you go through the training together, you go through the ups and downs, the rough times, and you build that foundation of the true meaning of community. So I think that's kind of where I leave it, and then I'll hand it to you because that's all I could kind of like think
Yeah,
of
yeah. I like
from the spur of the moment, I guess.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
Community.
yeah.
I mean, brotherhood is absolutely one of the things in the military that I don't think civilians, people just who don't. I mean, if you join a fraternity of some kind or any other type of it's okay. But when you sign up and you are going through the physical, and honestly, truly, truly, the physical was difficult, but
Even
honestly,
for you?
the physical was difficult, but it's truly. I mean, you'll hear many military people. It's really the mental. It's truly is,
Yeah.
and the struggle is real. But when you see other brothers with you going through the same thing, or if you see a brother that's helpless, you go help them. I mean, it brings. They call that camaraderie, right? And it's just natural. It just happens. If you fall and somebody reaches out your hand, grab you to help you in your struggles, then boom, and it just automatically happens. In the Marine Corps, it goes like this: the priority is mission completion, and then troop welfare. And so, and that statement right there can go a lot in many other, even in religion-wise, but got to get the job done. Whatever the mission is, whatever the first number one rule is, and then make sure everybody else is good. And that's such a valuable thing that you could even use in the family too,
Right.
at
right.
work especially too. I mean, the military was let's be real. The military was like probably the first, well, after the government, but like the first real corporate job. And you cannot say anything. Once you sign that dotted line, you can't. You follow, you be quiet, and then you just go. You got to do it. But if you can just fit in, assimilate, and do that, and the military has been successful for hundreds of years. And I think that's why it makes it easy, because these hundreds of years of tradition, which, it's been backed year after year after class every year. So what works is what we continue to do. And so, especially during now in this time, when we do something different, you can see what it does to like the normal functioning routine of the world, right? Trying to change it up. But for me, besides that though, the number one thing for military, I think, is, especially now, I mean, at that age, oh man, did I need that direction. I needed that direction
Yes.
so bad.
Yes.
I was so lost. We grow up thinking like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We're like, oh, dude, I'm an adult. But especially at my age right now, I'm like, 20? No. I have friends that are 30 who still trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. But when I meet people in the military, they have at least a focus, a foundation, which they can easily just adjust and make that change. But like people who don't have that, I feel that it's a long journey for them.
That as you were sharing, this thought came to my mind. The U.S. military, I mean, it's the ultimate of ultimates. I mean, it dates all the way back to the Roman Empire, where after that regime, we have the U.S. military. I mean, as a dominant force,
Correct.
right? So why is the U.S. military so dominant? Like, why? Where does that come from?
I think the infrastructure, really, and the length of history, and I think that the way the military trains and teaches, and really, like when you're talking about the mission accomplishment first, right? But how do we do it? How do we accomplish the mission as a team? So the core foundation has always been the community, and then of course you follow orders, right? But that infrastructure, I mean, there's been changes and all throughout the history, but the core values never quite like went away. So I think for me that's like the foundation of the why we are still the strongest military presence in the world.
So in the Marine Corps, we have a saying called honor, tradition, and commitment. And that's it.
That's
from there, that's the core.
There we go.
And if you have no honor, that's being righteous, that's being just and stuff like that. And if you have no courage, honor, courage, commitment, courage, yes. You gotta, and I know that a lot of people want to take that word courage, and it's like, it seems like it's something that's in between other people. No, it's within you. If you yourself can't muster up that strength to conquer whatever it is, but it's a step-by-step process. And that's what commitment is so important, because once you commit, even though if 99.99% you failed, you gotta get back up. But there's so many times where I see people, they're like, no, it's okay. I don't know. That's when you see a lack of courage, a lack of commitment. And then honor that's to yourself, your family, and God. You know what I mean? If you lack those.
So I think that last part right there that you shared, I think that's what it is. So as you guys were talking, I was thinking about, it can't be the history, because our military has only been around for like 300 years, right? So I'm thinking of like the British soldiers, right? Mm-hmm. So let's go back to 1776, the Revolutionary War, okay? But I really think it has a lot to do with God, and here's why, right? So, and maybe you guys have kind of a similar experience as me, but when I went to the military, I didn't go infantry. The reason why I went wasn't to go to the military. Okay, the reason why I went is because it was for a free education. I mean, that's my true intention when I went, right? I mean, I didn't know anyone in the military. I just knew that if you go to the service academy, you can graduate and you'll get a good job later on in the FBI, or you get a free education, right? Like that was the main thing, right? But when I went there, and I didn't realize this until I reflected on it afterwards, years later. When I was there, looking back years later, I was shocked at how my peers, the same 18-year-olds that were in there, right? Everything that you're describing, everything that you believe, that you talked about, right? They wanted to be there for their country. They loved this country.
Yes.
At that time, I can't say at 18 years old that I had this love for country, because I was taught, as an immigrant, my parents lived here, less years at the time than in their homeland in Korea, right? So there's this mentality of you are Korean. You are always going to be Korean first.
Correct.
Right? And America is like, you need to study and you need to integrate so that you can succeed here, right? That right there is the distance and the difference between a true American in the military that went because their fathers served, their fathers are officers in the military, and they have this instilled like story that they believe in, that their parents and grandparents, right, sometimes multi-generation, went to battle to fight for our freedom. And it was the freedom that was backing up our what was that freedom representing? It's, I'm going to have the freedom to believe in God and do what God tells me. I'm not going to have another human being tell me what to do, because if it's coming from God, I'm going to do it. Like, that is at the core of America. Being American, being free, and protecting that with our lives, right? Fighting for it. What do you think about that?
Of course, at the time that I enlisted, I didn't think of that, but you're right. Reflecting on it now, protecting. I mean, U.S. military is there to protect us, right? So that we have the freedom so we're going back to the constitutions right there. And you're right. How would I feel? I think that we take that for granted, that I get to believe and pursue my religion without anyone telling me what to believe. So yes, did I think of that when I joined for the first time? No. The reason for my enlistment is because I came here at the age of 14. So for me, I wanted to earn the right to become a U.S. citizen. That was the main reason, because in South Korea, as you guys know, it's a requirement. You have to enlist.
Right. And
for many
that's
countries.
such a big difference, though.
Many
You
countries.
got people that are in there because they have to be, not because they want to be.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus these guys here. I mean, look, not all.
Not all. Yeah.
Many may be like me in my situation because it's a better life. It's a way to a better life.
But
it's
you learn.
Right,
Oh, yeah,
right.
yeah.
But a majority, I would say, in the past, okay? I mean, as a minority, I can say this. I think white Americans, right? Anglo-Saxons that have a history of their military, even black Americans who have parents and grandparents that fought, right? I think those two, when they're in the military serving, right, it's at a different level because it's coming
Yes.
from the heart. Immigrants in the last 1.5, 2 generations, I don't think it's possible to have that looking back.
Right,
I don't
right,
think it's
right.
possible.
So
And we're seeing that today in
We're seeing that now.
our culture,
Yeah.
right? When parents are moving, from another country to here, and their kids, especially if the kids are growing up in California, right? It's like, where is the Pledge of Allegiance? Where is, prayers in schools? Like, all of those have been removed, right? So that appreciation and that story that was passed on of how much we had to fight for this, right? It's being lost,
Family story.
right? It's being lost.
Yes.
But there were martyrers, like even at the church, if we think about it, right? It's like you have the people that actually believe in the liturgy, believe in what they're practicing. And then you have the other people that are kind of there. Same thing with the military, right? You have the people that believe in the values of this country, our freedom and our constitution. Like, that's everything.
Protect the
And they're
freedom,
willing to
right.
die for it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, if you look at the U.S., it started off as, I mean, if we go, it's because, of course, it's not like the U.S. of A. was barren. There were people here, indigenous. But
Right.
if we're strictly solely talking about the U.S. of A., the New England, as they used to say
Correct.
back in the
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
they're trying to get away from those old bad traditions and things. They were stuck in a mud, right? And so like nothing was changing. And so people said, forget this, let's go, let's leave. And then when you don't have, especially during that time, there's no phones, communication was almost non-existent. I mean, you'd have to wait over months to get any mail or anything. But
Right.
so they had to establish everything from the gut and also from tradition, things that would work. And so I can't even imagine how each colonies were during that beginning when they were just first. I can't even imagine what the craziness. I'm sure we've had so many different types of governments, different types of, politics, government, religion was probably rampant at that time. Crazy. So to think that the U.S. is where it's at right now, it's pretty incredible. And yeah, God definitely, because to think that the U.S. of A. was God didn't play a whole huge role in that is absolutely wrong. God absolutely did play, because you saw it as soon as the biggest fight. They were fighting about slavery, right? And so like U.S. of A. is all about freedom. And so that's why they kept fighting and stuff like that. And that's what we continue to do, is to fight for our freedom. But now I feel like it's gotten, this word freedom is not the same word that we have.
The word freedom for us as Americans, right? It's got to be tied to a certain, at least from my perspective. I think this is true, right? Anyone that lives in America, right? You can't deny the fact that everything here exists today because of Christian values. The freedom that comes from Christian values and the people that fought for those Christian values. That's the U.S.
many
military.
died.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Many
That's a
died.
martyr right there.
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, look at a lot of the universities.
Yeah.
It was by Christians.
So as that becomes removed from society,
Yes.
right? Now we're starting to see the effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, the U.S. military in many ways is very similar to the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
Very similar,
Yes.
right?
very.
As far as
Yeah.
the order that's there,
Order, you follow orders.
the chain of command,
Chain of command.
the authority,
Yeah, authority,
that's given,
yes.
right? It's not about who's stronger and who's better. It's who is going through the process, the training, and then and it's all written, right?
And really, structure,
Structure,
which
right.
is what kind
infrastructure,
of
which is-
infrastructure,
right,
Authority.
and authority, and really the chain of command. You might not like it, but you still play within those boundaries. So once you lose that, you're gonna get punished, right? So I'm not talking about like punishments from God. That's not what I'm referring to.
Right,
but I'm talking. That's how the community. That's how the U.S. military, in my opinion, that's why it's still number one, the most powerful, because the infrastructure, the chain of command, and you have to, follow
No matter what,
orders.
I remember
Yeah.
learning this. No matter what, you respect the president and your commander or your
Exactly.
admiral or your
Exactly.
general or your admiral. Right?
Exactly,
No
yeah.
matter what.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you disagree with them
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
religiously
Yeah.
or politically.
Correct.
Right? Doesn't matter. If they were given the authority,
Yeah.
you respect them, and then hopefully, their term passes and someone better comes in.
Yeah, you might
but
complain,
we
but
know,
yeah.
man, that's a messed up dude, right? In command, but we still got to follow it. We follow it not because that person is right necessarily. We follow it because it protects the entire organization.
Exactly.
That's the reason
exactly.
why
That's
we follow it.
the infrastructure.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and I think that coming from the military background, because you brothers know that I wasn't born. I'm not a cradle Catholic, and I wasn't even a religious person. But when I was transitioning, got baptized and all that, it kind of worked for me because I believe in following orders, right? So when God, the Bible, say, hey, do it this way, I kind of do it because that's how
Obedience.
I was raised up. Obedience, really. You're right. Military and Catholic Church. I never
Yeah,
thought of it
yeah.
that
Oh,
way.
very close.
Yeah.
Very close. I mean, if you
Yeah.
want to even go further, I mean, like, not because I'm a Marine, but there's a strictness in the Marine Corps that's
Yes.
way
Yeah,
higher.
That I agree.
Thank you.
That I-
Much more disciplined, and so it's they have this
More
phrase
than
where it
the
says,
Coast Guard, bro?
no, not at all. But like with all these special forces, it's just that the Marine Corps is just a large special forces because everybody says, oh yeah, Navy SEAls, Air Force
But
troopers.
that's a small,
And they're like, oh, but they put them up like this, right? But then the Marine Corps we're put up to
Right.
it's
To
a
be
it's a
that
bigger,
big
yeah, exactly.
and to be that tight, yeah.
But so the Catholic faith, the military, and even the Asian culture, I absolutely have so much, not because because I'm seeing it, especially here in America. It's like, I think the one thing, because I've seen when it waters down our culture, in meaning that when we already have this unspoken respect, like I have not even, let's just say, I've not mentioned, I go, oh, how's it going, sir? My name is like in Korean, what's called 존댓말, right? We have a formal language. Actually, there are many other, even in Spanish, they have formal speech. But in America, it just feels everyone is on an even keel. Like that we can't even just go, like you just mentioned, I'm glad you brought it up. General, president, I may not necessarily respect the person in that seat, but you have to respect the seat.
The position.
No
right.
position,
Exactly.
no matter
Exactly.
what, right? You may be some loser, and then and I find out you're older and stuff like that. But if I meet you for this time, oh, 안녕하세요. Like I will do that out of respect, knowing the position that you occupy, like whatever it is. But I feel it's too casual here. Hey, what's up? Or sometimes it's not. I don't even look at you.
Right,
Because I won't even react to you until whatever. But I feel like that's a loss. It's sad.
Well, it's lack of, like he said, infrastructure, structure. It's a lack of purpose.
And tradition.
There's no purpose,
Yeah.
tradition, and
Yeah.
purpose, right? You don't have tradition
Yeah.
without purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I can understand, right? So I think we have to, kind of talk through this with our communities.
Yeah.
Like, how can we justify, right? And I'm not going to share, well, I guess I can, there's nothing to hide, but how can I respect a guy like Trump, right? Or a guy like Biden? I mean, it's really hard if you're a Democrat to look at someone like Trump from their eyes. Like, man, what an obnoxious, person. Doesn't matter how good his policies are, right? And then you have from the Republican side, you look at President Biden. Like, how can you respect a guy that everyone says he's Sleepy Joe, right? He's not even awake. Is he a real person? So it's so hard right now in our society, in our culture, to respect that position. But I'll tell you why, right? We have to do it. We have to do it not because of that person in office. We have to do it so we can wake up and be like, dang, that's the person that because I didn't go out there and vote, or I didn't go out there and actually learn about the policies and learn how all of this infrastructure works, that's what we are going to have to deal with for 4 years, and then maybe another 4 years. That's what my children have to deal with. We got to turn that into a positive and get everyone to learn about these things, because what are we wasting our time doing anyway? Right? Where half the times you're on hours and hours and hours on TikTok, YouTube, you're on all kinds of social media. Like, you need to really spend your time wisely and think about and look at all these problems that need to be solved. Right?
Yeah. So the first thing that the 3 points that we were talking about earlier, to heal, to educate, and to protect. And that's where to educate comes in. So in order to educate others, we need to educate ourselves first. So, right, we need to learn more ourselves. And I think that once we are, so when the educated do not educate others, then not only the truth will die out, it will crumble the infrastructure. So we'll have to just only sit there and complain, oh my goodness, I don't like that guy. But so in that case, yeah, you don't like him, so you're not going to follow him. Then we're going to have a chaos. And then on the other end, which is kind of like weird because we're just talking about order and infrastructure and follow orders no matter what. But at the same time, you don't know what you're following. Then that's kind of another, it's the other end of the spectrum, right? So
negligence,
right? So
right.
I think that
ignorance, negligence, and then we all know the consequences of that. It's abuse, slavery, right? Entrapment, all these. Right, so it's like you can't be on one complete side where you're just like blindly, following, right? And then on the other side, it's like, oh no, I'm gonna have it my way, and otherwise, I'm not gonna move, right? I'm not gonna give in. We gotta meet in the middle, right? We gotta meet in the middle.
We have to. So I think that when it comes down to it, not necessarily, I guess, the truth when it comes to like policies. How do you really know the truth, right? Like, meaning that who wrote the policies? What do those policies mean? So I guess rather than just only focusing on what those policies are written for, we just need to be more aware. And rather than, like you said, being on TikTok and kind of like wasting time, we need to be more vigilant about learning about our society, like current affairs, and then reaching out to within the communities to really educate each other. So yeah.
Which is why if we talk about the main 3 problems right now, and just to kind of reiterate, right? Health. We have a health epidemic. I think was his presidential candidate, RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., was saying we have a chronic disease epidemic where there's these unknown chronic diseases. If we look back in the last 5 years, 7, 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, something points to a time in like the early 80s, something started getting introduced where, and he's got like this list of 15 to 18 things, everything from pesticides, preservatives, plastics, corn syrup. There's like these random 13 to 18 things that, it kind of around the same time that is creating, peanut. What do they call it? Allergies, right? Like we never heard of this kind of stuff, I mean, when we were younger,
I never thought of that.
Right? Like, there's so many things.
Allergies,
like, right? Yes, but a lot of these diagnoses these days, right? Like, everyone has ADHD. I'm not saying I don't have ADHD, but you start telling someone, you got ADHD. When my kids hear that, you know what it becomes over time? It's like, oh, Dad, no, it's because I got ADHD. It's an excuse not to do something.
Correct.
All of this is an excuse.
Absolutely.
All of these diagnoses is an excuse to not do something for yourself, right? And then take some pills and take some drugs. Right?
And then if you're not
Right.
sympathetic about it, then you're an asshole. Right?
Right, but I
That's-
mean, I got
you get
ADHD,
canceled.
right?
You
But
get
I don't-
canceled if you're
I'm
not sympathetic about
I'm
it.
not going to believe that, oh, because of ADHD, that I can't sit still and I can't go to church and I can't pray for an hour. Like, I can't do certain things, right? I got ADHD. Well, hey, right? It's
And
not
then-
going to stop me from anything.
But unfortunately, there's
Right.
people, let's just say, okay, you just said, you know what, you embraced it. You're like, you know what, I have it, understood, but you're not advertising it. But then there are those people who want you to advertise it.
That's the excuse part, right? That's the excuse part.
No,
right?
it's okay. You have ADHD. It's okay, honey. Like,
yeah.
that's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you don't have to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you got to get out of. It's this laziness. It's this. Why do they call America the country of consumers? Right. Literally. You know what that root word is? Consumer. Right. I mean, if you look at the image of that word, you got to look at the image of just eating all day. A consumer.
actually, yeah.
You're consuming
Yeah, that
food.
image.
You're consuming drinks. You're consuming all kinds of porn, all kinds of drugs, all kinds of right. That's
Whatever
the
it is,
consumer society right now, right?
Indulgence.
Indulgence.
Absolutely.
Indulgence. Yeah.
So that's health. Wealth. Okay. Here's another big problem right now. Most people, right, don't even understand what wealth is. People think that, money, stocks, investing, everyone is so confused because they don't know the principle of how money and the infrastructure and the corruption, or I should say, how the game is set up.
Yeah.
See, if people understood the rules of the game and the rules were not what you think it is, you would play the game different. No one would play the game the way they're playing it right now if they actually knew that the rules changed from 1912 to 1971 to 2008. And then who knows what the recent changes would have been.
And we
right?
spend so much money and time to get into these schools and universities, and they don't teach you any of that.
Exactly.
They teach
Exactly.
you to how to follow orders to work for big corporations, if I may say.
And then community, right?
Right.
So my passion is to, recently, and I know this is a recent story for you, and we all have recent stories, right? And that's what, the purpose of this is. It's, I want people to understand why the Catholic Church exists today and what the purpose of the Catholic Church is. And actually, today's gospel is like a perfect way to start understanding about the Catholic Church. So in the Bible, right, today's gospel was about Mary, right, the mother of Jesus. Mm-hmm. So Jesus was a real person, so Mary would have been a real person, right? She carried Jesus in the womb. So the story goes like this, right? Jesus is the covenant, the promise, right? The promise of God of eternal life that came through the womb, the ark. The ark is the Noah's ark, right? It's the ship. So in the Bible, okay, the ship in the Noah's ark story, the ship represents something very profound, right? But before you understand what the ship represents, you have to know what the rain and the sea and the ocean and the flood represents. It's pretty easy, right? It's like sin and death, right? Because of sin, God flooded the world and everyone drowned in their own sin, right? They drowned in death, right? But Noah was told to create the ark. And what is the function of the ark? The ark actually floats. You don't have to do anything. It's amazing. If you really think about how a boat or a ship or an ark floats, to me, it's amazing because I'm not a scientist, right? Like, wow, that's cool. How does that thing float? Literally, without doing anything, when that ark floats above sin, then all
I
you
thought of it
have to
that
do
way.
is be in the ark and you're on top of sin. So everything in the Gospels, right, that reference the seas, the ocean, the water. There's a story called where Jesus walks on water, right? What does that represent? That represents Jesus walking on top of sin. And when Peter had faith in Jesus, when you keep your eyes on Jesus, you can walk on top of water. But then the storms came and then he fell in. He fell into the sin out of fear, right? Okay.
Little faith.
Exactly. So we all know as Christians that our body is a temple. And we also know that the temple that Jesus was born through, the body, was Mary, right? We also know that Mary was the Ark of the Covenant. Right? I don't know if you heard of that.
Yes. Yes,
So
I-
as an individual, it makes sense. I'm an individual church. My body is a church. Okay. Now here's how this makes sense, right? Can I swim? Absolutely. If I go to a 5-foot swimming pool, right, I can actually swim, right? So I can swim on top of water, right? When I become a bigger church by being married, right, I have a spouse, now I become a bigger church. When I have kids, I become a bigger church. Right? So what does that represent? That represents now not just me swimming in the water by myself, now I'm in a little canoe, right? As my church gets bigger, now I'm in a little, 20-footer, speedboat, right? What does a bigger boat, a bigger ship allow me to do? It allows me to go into deeper waters. Right? How deep? Can I go all the way to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Not with my own body, not with a little canoe. That's when I need an ark the size of a Titanic of all Titanics. And that's what the Catholic Church represents, right? You don't have to have that big of a ark, but who's going to go save those people all the way in the deepest parts of the ocean, right? That's the mission of the Catholic Church, right? That's the difference between
I love that.
That's the difference between a small boat
I love that.
and the Titanic of Titanics in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right?
That's why the U.S. aircraft carrier. Well,
Exactly.
the U.S.
The U.S. military,
Each fleet
right?
is
Exactly.
gigantic.
Yeah.
But that's required. They all have
because
a very
they think about the
specific-
entire world,
correct.
right?
We are called the World 911 for a reason.
Yeah.
That's not just somebody. No, whenever something happens, they send in the Marines 911. But the U.S. military, everyone's begging for U.S. Please help us, U.S. because we get it done. We know the human rights, the respect for dignity. We knew all of that. We know all of that. But it's definitely right now. It's the words. It's just getting twisted in a way that we are deep in that part where what is it? The Good Samaritan. Right? The Samaritan that got, I think it was here in California, the Samaritan that got sued for saving somebody, right? I mean, like,
Really?
that's
No, I
that's
didn't
where
hear
we
Oh,
are.
that happens everywhere in these days.
Oh, I believe
everywhere.
it. But what I mean is
Yeah.
because of the legal,
Yeah, like
the system that we have here
the
in America.
system, and
yeah.
then
They won.
the person that saved
Yeah.
that
I
the
just
other
saved your
person-
life and you're suing
yeah,
me.
and actually lost a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
so
Correct. So that now it gets, well, maybe they didn't want to be saved. You're like, wait, we're really arguing this right now? We're arguing. So the person died. You're okay with that?
You're right.
That's what we're arguing right now. That's where we are right now. So it's,
Yeah.
So, great points by both of you, because, well, first of all, I never thought of it that way. Like thinking like the Catholic Church, the way you described it,
It's
and
like
then
the U.S. military.
yeah,
It's the
and
exact
then
same.
and Brother Bruce talking about U.S. military as the big the ship, right, the ark. So great. I never thought of it that way, but I think that kind of circles back to how this country was founded by Christian principles.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, if you look at the continuing to add to what he's talking about as far as the church is an ark, and it's upside down.
Right. Yeah. That
And
I've
that
heard of.
middle area of the church, the cathedral, it's like, I forget the word, but it means ship. So it has.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I think I heard of that.
But for salvation, yes, you need to be in
Yeah.
church
You gotta be
every
in
week.
church, yeah.
Sundays, let's go.
So honestly, like if you now that you so somebody actually like explained it in a sense that like what does a ship do, right? What does an ark do? When you put it upside down, it protects you from the rain,
Mhm.
right? So, like I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that everyone, that who goes to church are safe or sinless, because none of us are sinless. We're all sinners, but still within the church, you are to a certain point protected, at least
Safer.
while you're there, right?
Yeah.
So sort of like a sanctuary in a sense, and I was like, okay, that's a really cool way to look at it. So like I'm learning all this as this is new to me. It's only been like a year and a half, but I think that like the way you two brothers explained it sort of clicked for me, and how important both points are in not only protecting, bringing back.
Well, that's the thing, right? And
Yeah,
it
the
starts
community.
with the men. It starts with the brothers.
Absolutely.
And right now, the equivalence of bringing people back to the church is the equivalence of telling a kid right now on social media to go to the military, right? That's the equivalence.
Okay.
Like, why would I want to do that? It's going to be their mentality, right? I mean, it's way harder to bring someone back to the church, right? But what I'm saying is, it's as men in today's society are, I'm going to say, tempted to be less manly, less masculine, and it's almost looked down upon to become to be masculine. That right there is weakening us as a society and as a country. Okay?
Yeah, because a lot of people are afraid to be canceled. You don't want to offend people by bringing up ideas that are so-called unpopular, which is saying that we got to do this because, as duties as a man. Yeah, I think that's a very so-called unpopular idea. So we need to fix that.
And it's
in
crazy.
my opinion,
Yeah, it's
we need to
crazy
fix
how-
it. Call me old-fashioned.
How
but-
fast these ideals changed in the last 5 some years. It
Yeah.
changed so rapidly. We need to take it seriously.
especially during the pandemic.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
so,
yeah.
because the human interaction was sort of taken away. So everyone was, they became vulnerable to whatever the media, whatever you see on your phone, on your TV, on your laptop, basically taught you. That's all you really knew. So,
And one last thing that I remember right now is, again, men need to take responsibility, right?
Yeah.
The brothers need to take responsibility. One of the biggest issues right now that, is kind of in the news, especially as the elections come up next year, on the conservative side, the Republican side, although, there's a lot of disagreement with the way the Democratic Party is operating right now with the economy. The one thing that's going to split up the Republican Party is the topic of abortion. The thing is,
yeah.
with abortion, okay, I truly believe that women have the right, right? Women should have the right. It shouldn't even be, the problem isn't women's right or not women's right. That's not the problem, right? The problem starts with the men, right, who knocked them up to begin with and then bounced. Or the women feel like, oh, they're not going to be around, right? And they can't raise a family. They can't raise no kid by themselves, right? I can totally understand that. You know what I mean? So it's the knucklehead men, right? The knucklehead, the irresponsible brothers. Doesn't matter how old you are, what race you are, what right. It doesn't matter what culture you're from. If you're gonna knock up a girl, you need to be there and be responsible, right? And carry through with that. Because of that, right? Lack of responsibility, we're in this cultural mess where it's like, oh, I can hit up 20, 30 girls and, get them on some what is it? Some pills and
Yeah.
right? And then worst case, go get an abortion. It's messed up, right? It's messed
You're
up.
right, because we're not trying to resolve the root cause of the issue. We're only talking about and trying to blame and focusing on the women who actually have to go through the procedures, right? So you're right. It is us.
It comes back
brothers.
to us.
Yeah,
It comes
brothers.
back to us.
We should be held responsible for that. Yeah.
I mean, but I don't want to. Yes, it is. The men must share the responsibility. It should not. You're absolutely right. But the women do play a role on it too. I mean, like, I feel like now more so than ever than before, women were at least, I feel like their conscience was a lot heavier in the sense that, like, they really truly waited, as in, like, weigh, W-E-I-G-H, like, weighed the options, like, oh. But now, back then, but now it's just like, nope, my choice. And it's like straight there. They don't even think about the life. That's where I have a problem with. But that has to do with...
That's more, again, I'm going back to, that's more of a symptom of
Correct.
a culture that changed way before
Correct.
what we're seeing now, right?
No, I mean, the
Yeah,
traditions,
yeah.
if the way that we handled females that were expecting, if that was handled from the beginning, like how it was different, I mean, I'm glad actually to see there's a lot of Christian, I'm not quite sure about the other religions, but I know that there's a lot of Christian denominations out there who are very, very like open to getting prevention of the killing of the baby, abortion, and they'll do everything with those 9 months to take care of them. And even if they do decide that they don't want to adopt that child, they'll give it up for adoption. But if that system was always in place, where it's like, hey, okay, it's happened, where we're not just doing this, I can't believe you got pregnant. Like, instead of doing this, okay, it's done deal. Come on, we'll take care of you, we'll help you with your child, and then we'll send you on the way if you decide that. But because it's always been just kill, 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 and then even the word, it's not about. If it was pro-life against life, I think we'd have a different conversation right now.
Yeah.
But that's the. That's the genius.
Pro-choice.
That's the
Pro-choice.
genius in
Yeah.
these evil thoughts is that you just say
Yeah.
pro-choice, and you're like, oh, well, if you say choice, then it's always mine.
Yeah,
That's not.
yeah.
You can't take my choice away.
I think that's the one of the major issues right now, that like certain words they tweak with them, and which can change the perspective
Oh, absolutely.
on the issue just
It
because
completely-
they're offensive. But come on, it is not. It's you're right. It's pro-life, right? But it's not like pro-choice. By changing those words, oh my goodness, it'll change the whole perspective on the issue itself. So you're right.
It's gotten so crazy in the fact that, like, we've gotten this far where they're like, now, I mean, the pro-lifers, they have absolute every scientific backing detail, whatever, and like about when the conception, when is it a baby, when all that kind of stuff. But like, I hate having to go there that way. I mean, like, why do we have to keep extending it so? The proof is there. The fact is always there. It's been there. It has not changed. It's not like just something magically happened in the 19 or 2000s that like, oh, it's not a life anymore. No, it's always been the same. The system is what's broken, and that's why we are where we are. But change of words, absolutely.
But I do agree with, even though I agree with the both of you, but I think that as a society, as a community,
As a community.
yeah. We're not holding men responsible as much as we should, because the focus is still more on the women. And you're right. It's the men, it's the brothers who need to really wake up.
Yeah,
And
I mean, that's what it comes down to. You know, it's the men have it too easy going to an office job, no physical hardship, no real work to go out there and eat, like to go hunt for food, like right. So what are we becoming naturally? We're becoming more feminine. You know what I mean? Like that's naturally happening. Right. So we have to be mindful of that and then wake up from that. And that's why, right, not only this podcast, but we have our morning routine, right?
Yeah.
We get together, like
Yeah.
you got to have some time spent. I mean, right now, right, you waste so much time throughout the day, but really the things that are going to be really good for us, right, as men, as brothers, right, as men, right, we need to put ourselves in challenging environments and
Yes.
and
Yes.
whether it's exercise, mental exercise, spiritual exercise, all of it. We need all of that
All,
right now,
all.
especially
Yeah.
with the way
Yeah.
living in America is just too comfortable.
Yeah,
right? It's
body,
too
mind,
comfortable.
and spirit, right? So without, like you said, the body is temple of God. So if we don't take care of that, our mind weakens. Once those go, then the spirit disappears.
Now all
So,
we have
yeah.
left is emotions at that
Exactly.
point, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
every little thing that someone, I know how it feels when I'm like filled with emotion and I got addictions, right? One little thing, one person looks at me wrong. What you looking at, man? What you looking at, right? What kind of problem you got with me, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everyone's in that state right now.
Yeah.
Everyone is drugged up. Everyone is filled with emotions, and they're one step away from killing each other. Right? This
Yeah.
is a huge, huge epidemic. It's not your fault, but we are in this. We are cursed in this. We're
Yeah.
all doomed in this unless we wake up from it. And
Yeah.
that's what we got to do for each
Exactly.
other, right? And this is a struggle that I'm dealing with every single day, right? Whether it's alcohol, whether it's weed, whether it's social media, whether it's pills, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all addicted to something in this country right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So for more of this, right, follow us, follow me at Alex Rocky Kim, and you're going to see this journey with the brothers. We are doing some really big things. We are all part of the same church community. We're building the church. We're part of the church building community. And there's a reason why. We're not trying to impose our faith on you or our religion on you, but we want you to see why we believe, especially as men in this society right now, especially as military veterans in the U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps,
Military.
and Service Academy, right, in the military, why we choose to live a certain lifestyle, right?
I like that.
For our
Choose.
family's future. Why
Exactly.
we choose this, right?
Why we choose
and we
this.
want you to see how we will continue growing where we've come from. We've come far. I know you brothers have come far, but we are just getting started, right? What I want to go through as far as a transformation and growth, I haven't even gone through 1% of what my potential is. All of our potentials are way more and way greater in God's eyes than we can possibly imagine. There's no excuse, no reason in this world with all of these resources, with all of this technology, there's no reason why we all can't, 8 billion people, live in harmony, live in unity, live in peace, and all have our basic necessities of food and shelter met. So follow us. Follow me at Alex Rocky Kim, and we are going to be on this journey to change one man, one brother, one husband, one son at a time, and then everything else will follow. I truly believe that. Thank you for following us today.
Amen.
Amen.